Hi everyone, this is Histology by Genius, and today we're going to talk about the histology of skeletal muscle. There are three types of muscle: cardiac, skeletal, and smooth muscle. The first thing you look at when you have already figured out it's a slide of some kind of muscle is the type of the cut it is. The question you have to ask yourself is it a transverse section or longitudinal section? This is how transverse section and longitudinal section of skeletal muscle would look like on a slide under microscope. Let's quickly review the structure of muscle. Muscle consists of multiple muscle fascicles. Muscle fascicles consist of multiple muscle fibers, and muscle fibers, also known as myocytes, are multinucleated muscle cells that consist of even smaller structures called myofibrils. Finally, myofibrils consist of thick and thin myofilaments, with thick filaments composed of protein myosin and thin filaments composed of protein actin. Now, a layer of dense connective tissue called epimysium surrounds the whole muscle. A layer of connective tissue called perimysium surrounds the muscle fascicles. A layer of loose connective tissue called endomysium surrounds the individual muscle fibers. And finally, there is a cell membrane of muscle fibers that lays adjacent or under the endomysium and is called sarcolemma. Now let's take a look at the longitudinal section of skeletal muscle. Today we'll take a look at the four features that you should be able to distinguish on a slide of skeletal muscle. First, let's distinguish the individual muscle fibers. Those appear as separate tubes. Now, as we mentioned it previously, endomysium wraps the individual muscle fibers. Skeletal fibers are multinucleated muscle cells. In the hematoxylin and eosin staining method, nuclei appear as dark violet or purple flat ovals. Unlike transverse section of cardiac muscle where nuclei appear central, nuclei on a transverse section of skeletal muscle appear peripheral. There are two types of muscle that are considered to be striated muscle. Those are skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle. Remember the myofilaments? Thin myofilaments composed of actin appear as light bands, while thick myofilaments composed of myosin appear as dark bands. Together, these light and dark bands create the striated appearance of skeletal muscle. Striations on a slide under microscope appear as dark lines across the muscle fiber. Now let's review the four features of skeletal muscle. On a slide of skeletal muscle under microscope, you can see muscle fibers that look like separated tubes, endomysium that individually wraps muscle fibers, multiple peripheral nuclei on the surface of muscle fibers, and finally cross striations. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. You can also find us at Histology by Genius on Instagram.